It is 1945, and you are about to take off from Florida on your way to Puerto Rico. You've got a whole squadron of B-25 bombers with you, and your destination is just 100 miles away. So you switch on autopilot, sit back and relax for what should be a quick flight. But then suddenly, without warning, the instruments start freaking out. The lights go haywire and then the engines begin to fail one by one until all you have is the sound of wind screaming past your open windows. You struggle to keep control as the bomber begins to fall from the sky, crashing into the ocean where it disappears beneath the waves. And that is the terrifying fate that befell Flight 19, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy torpedo bombers which vanished over the Bermuda Triangle in December 1945. This is our channel. And today we're answering the extraordinary question, is the Bermuda Triangle really a watery grave for ships and planes? First, let's set sail back to 1817, when a British naval vessel called the HMS Minuet was sailing through these very same waters. It encountered some pretty severe storms, which knocked out its masts and forced the ship to drop anchor for a few days while it waited for calmer seas. But during this time, the ship began to leak badly, so the captain made the decision to abandon ship and leave it right there on the edge of the Bahamas bank. But as soon as the sailors left the vessel, the HMS Minuet disappeared beneath the waves, vanishing without a trace. There were no lifeboats, and not a single person survived. But this wasn't the first or last ship to disappear here, because in 1880, the captain of a nearby lighthouse reported seeing the crew of a schooner struggling to free their ship from a sandbar close to the entrance of the nearby Samana Bay. He offered them assistance, but was waved off. And the next morning, the schooner was nowhere to be seen, nor was it ever found. In fact, from 1860 to 1909, more than 30 ships were reported missing in these waters, leading to the area being dubbed the Bermuda Triangle. In reality, this particular area has always been treacherous to navigate, largely because of the shallow reefs and sandbars lying just below the surface. This means that if you're navigating the triangle at night, you may find yourself sailing straight for certain disaster. But in the modern age, we have maps and technology to help us avoid such pitfalls, right? Well, enter the USS Cyclops. This was a large U.S. Navy collier ship, essentially a massive boat designed to carry coal, which disappeared in March 1918 while sailing from Rio de Janeiro to Salvador in Brazil. The ship had an experienced crew of 306 men, but apart from a few lifeboats, none of them survived. When the ship was 2 days into its journey, a storm struck, but it wasn't severe enough to sink such a large vessel. What's more, another ship reported seeing the Cyclops just 2 days later, indicating that it had weathered the storm just fine. But when it failed to arrive at its destination on time, a search party was sent out. That's when they found empty lifeboats along the northern coast of Brazil, suggesting that the crew had abandoned ship in the face of danger. But this was a cargo ship, and it had no lifeboats on board. And in any case, no trace of the ship or its crew has ever been found. There have been many theories as to what happened to the Cyclops, including that it was carrying a secret cargo of manganese nodules. These are naturally occurring spheres of iron and manganese that are found in the deep sea and which would have been worth a fortune if smuggled out of Brazil. It's been suggested that the ship was carrying a secret load of these back to the US when it was boarded by German agents who ordered the crew to sail to a different port. A fight broke out and the ship accidentally sank. Others have pointed towards the possibility of friendly fire, given that World War I was raging at the time. Some have even blamed the legendary lost city of Atlantis. But despite all of these theories, nobody knows exactly what happened to the Cyclops, although some believe it could have been one of the first victims of the Bermuda Triangle. Fast forward a few decades and the Bermuda Triangle is starting to live up to its name. On New Year's Eve in 1950, a pilot named George Stimson took off from Florida in his single-engine plane. His plan was to fly to the Bahamas, but halfway through his journey, He got lost in bad weather and had to divert to the nearby Andros Island. Once he landed, he decided to stay the night before continuing his journey the next day. But when he didn't show up for his connecting flight, a search party was dispatched. They discovered his plane abandoned on the airstrip, and with no sign of where George had gone, it seemed likely that he had simply gotten lost at sea. A few weeks later, a fisherman reported seeing a man swimming near the nearby Berry Islands, waving his arms frantically for help. But when the Coast Guard arrived at the scene, there was no sign of anyone there. In the following months, 3 more planes went missing in the Bermuda Triangle, Flight 19, in December 1945, followed by a single-engine helicopter in January 1946, and then another plane in February 1946. Of course, planes going missing isn't unusual, but the circumstances surrounding these cases were peculiar. None of the aircraft sent out to look for the missing planes ever returned. All of them were forced to land for repairs or worse. In fact, since 1950, more than 25 aircraft have disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle. But there is one case that stands out above all others, the disappearance of the Star Tiger in January 1948. The plane took off from the UK bound for Kingston in Jamaica. But shortly after taking off, the pilots radioed back to say that they had lost the use of their directional gyro. This is a device used for maintaining a fixed direction, so when it breaks, you have absolutely no idea where you're going. They requested permission to divert to Lisbon, but permission was denied. As the pilots attempted to make their way across the Atlantic, the plane flew dangerously off course and was soon heading straight for the nearby Azores Islands. The pilots asked to be diverted there instead, but by now, their plane was running low on fuel. And in the end, the plane crashed into the sea, killing all 25 people on board. It was this incident that led Vincent Gaddis to coin the term Bermuda Triangle in an article published in 1964. Soon afterwards, the area was infested with treasure hunters and conspiracy theorists eager to solve the mystery once and for all. And the most popular explanation by far has to be that the Bermuda Triangle is home to a giant underwater vortex, sucking anything that comes too close straight down to the ocean floor. But we have yet to find any evidence of this happening. Sure, we have found the wreckage of a few planes and ships, but that doesn't support the idea that a gigantic whirlpool is living up to its namesake. Not unless this vortex is invisible and only strikes when no one is looking. That is why the most plausible explanation for the Bermuda Triangle is that it's just a myth. It's like a kind of collective hallucination that we all share, where we imagine that more ships and planes go missing here when compared to other areas of the ocean. The truth is, though, that the number of ships and planes going missing over the Bermuda Triangle is roughly the same as you'd expect, given how much traffic passes through each year. According to statistics compiled by Lloyd's of London, almost 80% of ships that disappear at sea do so in the Atlantic Ocean, which is also the busiest sea in the world. So it shouldn't come as any surprise that the Bermuda Triangle is home to so many wrecks. And then there are the planes. Since 1945, more than 50 commercial airplanes have crashed in the United States. And when you consider that millions of flights take off every year, this shouldn't be cause for concern. So the truth is that yes, the Bermuda Triangle is home to many wrecks, and yes, many ships and planes have disappeared here, but there's nothing particularly mysterious going on. It's just a case of coincidence. No vortex, no magnetic anomalies, no alien abductions, and certainly no Atlantis. Just bad weather, rogue waves, and human error. Now you need to watch. The real reason why Egypt banned the movie Titanic, or have a look at how the Titanic could have avoided its fate.